Hi there, this is yours truly, Clarice talaga. Yes, katapusan na po ng buwan ng Agosto. And another day, it's going to be the month of September. And in Filipino tradition, whenever the bear month starts, the bear, it begins with September, October, November, December. Um, it we begin to feel the Christmas spirit, diba? So um, August is supposed to be a ghost month. I don't know what that means really because nakiki ghost month lang ako. I'm using a lamp now because it's a dark what dark 5:30 p.m. here in the Philippine time. So today's broadcast, I wanna go back a little bit to March 2019. That's 2 years ago, and it seems like a lifetime ago. Um, it was when my daughters and I, together with my son-in-law, went to Hong Kong before social unrest had disturbed the way of life that the Hong Kong people had known since the British colony. So, I don't know how the exact date, but in the month of September, there's in all likelihood, I will be together with my group, whoever they may be, we might be visiting the country of Malaysia. And just like any other ASEAN country, applying for a travel visa is not necessary anymore. So the trip will entail hotel accommodation arrangement and buying plane tickets. But there's going to be a very big difference in our Hong Kong trip and in Malaysian trip. First off, no. First off, the difference will be, yeah, that's it. First off, the difference will be the paperwork uh, that will have to be observed first, that will have to be accomplished before setting schedule for this trip. So kasama na din po sa process na ito ang the proper identification of yours truly, which will not rely on physical identification, whether I will resemble myself in person, whether, give or take years, I will be as I am in the videotapes, in the video recorded messages that I had been sending. But what I have here in my hand is the communication bearing the names and the purpose for this letterhead. Okay, let me just read this part where I have enumerated the names, that due to growing number of misidentification incidents, herein listed are the names of persons with personal knowledge and whose name ID was mentioned in official receipts, invalid contracts, and in legal tenders not limited within Philippine jurisdictions. So I have here the names which will receive a formal notice of where their name will be used and how our office, how our company will receive their sentiment reaction, comments, suggestions, questions, or any reaction, any response from after they have received this communication. So first off, Mr. and Mrs. Elaine Conrad Sekitin, Liaison Officer, Australia. So together with his wife, Ning Fian, who I have come to regard as very smart lady. I would like to say this will be the culmination of all the things that had been happening for the past years, for the past 2 years. Miss Philomena Nancy Liose, Mr. Teddy Zavalerio, Mr. Kim Poreza, Mr. Carlo Panganiban, Mr. Ezekiel Ginto, Mr. Art Enelo, Pastor Ralph and Cindy La Rosa, Mr. Mardio Nadera, Mr. Rio Mataya, Mr. Romy Veracruz, Mrs. Helen Eco, Miss Tita Mendiola, Matrox Electronic System registered. It's based in Canada, Quebec, Canada. Adobe Premiere, San Jose, California, USA. Engineer Lito Dayahan, Mr. and Mrs. Antonio Gloria Angay, Mr. Elmer Padillo, Mrs. Mirna Salvalion, Mr. Michael Gitan, and Mr. Joaquin T. Garcia Jr. So they will be receiving a copy of this communication, CC, diba? Because the process of validation will be up to another level from day one of me becoming a client of a law firm supposed to be based in Sydney, Australia. So if I can just illustrate why I would be needing the services of a law firm, take for instance, my daughter JM. Actually, she's my panganay, firstborn. And, they have a car amortization. They're paying off their Innova Toyota SUV, and they are paying Toyota in-house financing for 5 years. And this chattel mortgage is for 5 years, assuming that if at any point in their monthly amortizations, I will come forward claiming to have paid some of those amortizations, and therefore I own shares of that car, of that Innova, what happens next? Okay, second, probably primary of this will be the disagreements and the possible conflicts between myself as the mother and between my daughter JM, right? But if it's going to escalate and that we will not be able to talk about it, both of us can be guided by the following. Number one, there is no reason to think that it will not happen to me because, or to JM, because it didn't happen before. Since that is not the case, because it happened to me while being a daughter, being the firstborn, being the panganay, the opposite had actually happened to me as the daughter and as a young business person who got by through informal and verbal concessions. We have here, I know that, interrelationship between family members, relatives, friends can pose a complexity and complications to otherwise ordinary and normal relationship between families. Whenever there's money talk or there's business concessions, either a business that had gone south, meaning it went bankrupt, or it had taken off, and that there is a need to talk about money matters and assets. Sometimes talks like that can bring complications to relationships, even amongst the best of friends, even amongst close family members, diba? And I had started young because I got married at 19, and the father of my daughters was the man I had married, and that I had started, fresh from my giving of birth. I had started working under my mother's wings. And she pushed me to the right direction, in that I had known the importance of doing it legitimately, starting it right from the onset, diba? Starting with business registrations, compliance to regulations. That sometimes I was, as a young person doing business, I was very amazed and confused why we had to pay so much money to get the business going, and afterwards there's not much left to the capital to make it, to make it in its first year, with the ups and downs of the market. And um, doing the business can mean right decisions and wrong decisions, and sometimes we have to dip and make and apply for loans, right? But um, there was a time I had blamed the cost of doing business, like registration of business permits, um, paying SSS, something like that, diba? Why do we have to spend so much money in the beginning of the business? And only when I was doing it on my own did I realize the value of doing it and starting off at the right footing. So, at this point in time, I can either ignore hindsight and not get helped by the tuition fee I paid on hard lessons, University of Hard Knock. Like, I didn't finish college, but I was already doing the business firsthand. I would be there every day, and I would also, whenever we need to fund checks, um, I would be sharing the stress and the pressure to come up with the exact money, diba? So that we will continue to have a good business name, a to maintain a credit worthiness, diba, in the banks, because once you get your name blacklisted, it's so hard to redeem yourself. So I can cite the facts surrounding the precedents, because these had happened in the past many times, and as a non-lawyer, a layperson, I had dedicated maximum number of years and resources just to reclaim my rights. Now, I'm thinking that if I didn't start out right, and if I had been an underground entrepreneur, it would have been impossible. It would have been, yeah, I will not, a minor miracle will not do it if I didn't start out, the right way. Second, I use the example of JM and myself, and we're mother and daughter. And to be more specific, mother, between, the relationship between a business woman mother and a grown up daughter who's also into business. So what if in the months to come it will be beneficial for me to say that JM had forgotten all those payments that I had made, and the conversations that we had about those payments, either um, she was spinning it off and not being truthful, or that she had lost it. She had completely forgotten all about the loans that she had asked from me, and wherein she promised me a share in their car. Actually, though there were similarities in the illustration and what happened between myself and my dearly departed parents, which had prompted me to record conversations, especially those that delved on contentious topics and sources of conflicts and verbal arguments in the last years of their life. Rather than argue until I'm blue on the face, I had decided to try another tack whereby we would be more objective about our discussion of our differences because it involved money, finances, businesses. Before I found my niche in the pulp fiction industry, um, I would drop by because my father and my mother had separated. My father had uh, applied for the annulment of their marriage, and he was happily married, and I would visit him there. During that time, I was a struggling artist writer who's trying to commercialize it. So my transition from being the capricious and hobbyist, a writer who, not a professional writer, but um, a daughter of my parents who had time and some cash reserves to pursue hobbies like that, writing on the side, devoting rather than um, get myself in trouble. I've been indulged to do some writing on the side. So that was how I was regarded back then. Nobody had figured out how serious I was to make this a lifelong career. Um, Nobody had expected me a to make this a paying profession, diba? And at the start, when I was beginning um, to be to be serious about it, making my parents uncomfortable about letting go of some of my responsibilities in the family business, in the corporation, and devoting much of my time writing, um, in the production, mingling with other writers so that I will know the tricks of the trade, the tools of the trade. I would socialize, and I would attend seminars, workshops to further hone my craft. My father was the first one to react and became uncomfortable with who I was turning out to be. So whenever I visit him, I would bring my work and the company papers of the first business that I had in the publishing. Ay, nako, I would not go home with my heart intact because I would hear him rant, and my stepmother would say, just give him time. Maybe he would see, um, he would see sense. He would see the light of day that I have really the talent and I have the determination to go after this passion of mine. Diba? So it was like that in the beginning. Number three, I may have general idea on laws with regards to contracts and obligations. civil laws, but I don't have the qualifications and enough know-hows to avoid a repetition of the past vulnerability. So, diba, my friends were puzzled about how hardcore my stance had been that I would talk ad nausea about this subject matter of reclaiming, consolidating, the terminologies. What are you doing? Who is who do you think is snatching your name, your business away from you? So those were the details. Those were the reactions I got when I started, you know, putting down my feet and getting into the mire, getting down into the ugliness of it, becoming hardcore. So how I am very leery about this, having a repeat round, to do another round of what are you doing, diba? So I would rather, prevention is better than cure. I should know this. And number 4, at this point in time, to be honest, I will not know how to speak with Grab Philippines. That's one of the best arguments for being a member or a client of a law firm, even if it's based in other countries. Because Grab Philippines is one of the franchises of Grab Singapore, which originated from Malaysia. The way it is turning out to be, my personal life is not the main client of a law firm. Right. Um, Let me rephrase that again. My person and my personal life, my private and personal life, is not the main client of a law firm, of this law firm. It is my company who will be assuming a juridical entity wherein I am just the alter ego. So the requirements will be different. Like in the past, I was so consumed with accomplishing the personal effects, and it was tiresome, really, until I reached that level of legitimacy where I can do corporate. I have earned the right to assume a corporate entity. So number 5, the fifth reason why the first day of being a client is important. This is worthy of emphasis. Rather than a personality clarice, rather than a public personality clarice as the client who happens to have a company she is also running, the main client is the CEO of a company, which is the main thrust of the lawyer-client relationship. So the probe on the legality in the personal level must breach all the technicality of the company as the juridical entity. So for now, the checklist has been drawn. My part is to comply with the checklist, the sovereign laws of Australia, for instance. That's the work that's cut out for me to comply with each of the requirements. And then by itself, this will, uh, I am, I'm not going to use the term cure, because it's not going to cure, but things will fall into place after the compliance for a business registration, a corporate entity, Then that part about my personal life, about the private, the private aspect of my personal life will fall into place with the proper representation. My personal information follows that corporate existence. And at this point in time, it doesn't matter uh, who my husband is, but the most important question that needs to be answered is, what is the product that I offer, and how can I comply with the regulations in Australia, in Malaysia, in Singapore, and why my compliance to the Philippine laws is will remain to be a pending matter, will remain to be a going concern, but this time around it will be properly represented. So the subjective part, because we're talking about anecdotes and narratives, is secondary to the objective corporate documentation requirements. So whatever is needed to be able to attain the corporate existence, that's the work cut out for me for the month of September. And so it necessitates liquidating the initial funds that I have received. And I cannot do it alone because we should be guided by the sovereign laws. It is also high time to admit that foreign funds were able to be utilized in the accounts payable, the outstanding financial obligations of Talaga Information and Business Consultancy. So I will be booking reservation on accommodation and plane ticket, but I will not be paying for them because that will be part of the terms and conditions that I will be working on with my legal counsel. So that's it for now. And I want to end this broadcast with this video because this is how I will be introducing my personal and private life after the completion of the requirements for a corporate juridical entity, not only here in the Philippines but abroad. So ladies and gentlemen, this is yours truly, Clarice talaga, and this is the family I come from.
We were strangers, starting out on a journey, never dreaming what we'd have to go through. Now here we are, and I'm suddenly standing at the beginning with you.
No one told me I was going to find you. Unexpected, what you did to my heart. When I lost hope, you were there to remind me this is the start. And life is a road and I wanna keep going. Love is a river I wanna keep flowing. Life is a road now and forever, wonderful journey. I'll be there when the world starts turning. I'll be there when the storm is through. In the end I wanna be standing at the beginning with you.
We were strangers on a crazy adventure.
Never dreaming how
Okay, so before I end this broadcast, this video was actually it's not complete because that's the downside, the disadvantage of being a one-man team, that I could not, in putting together the pictures, I should have exerted more effort to look for the pictures of each of the siblings of my parents. But I was short for time and I needed to publish this. And the last video editor that you know came under my employ, we were not afforded a good internet connection, that I was not able to give them the materials for the complete video presentation, because I want to give credit where the credit is due. It's not that um, one of the aunts is a favorite over other aunts, or one uncle over other uncles. I know that's one of the grudges that had one of the grievances that I was supposed to commit, is that I was not being very fair in my presentation of the family members, and in the production. But being a one-man job is kind of self-limiting. So I hope that after I get my own stuff back again, I would somehow um, I know, be more perceived as fair, and I will do what's right. Thank you so much. This is yours truly, Clarice.